Welcome to this week's Leader Equation. I am Linzee Ciprani, one of your hosts, and Christy Belt-Grossman, who is the other host, is off gallivanting in Paris, that lucky woman. And so I have my amazing husband, Steve Ciprani, alongside of me today.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We are the co-owners of Ciprani Consulting and the Linzee Ciprani real estate team. And today I also have Len Schwartz and his amazing team manager, Shelly Seidemann, and they are with the Len Schwartz team. And we are really excited to dive in and talk to them because they are two people that I've known for a few years now. They have built an amazing business together, and they've been together, working together side by side for almost 3 years. I'm going to say almost 3 years, but really 2 years. And they are here today to talk to us about their team, some of the struggles they've gone through, but it'll be really fun to kind of walk through what that looked like when they first came together and how they've kind of progressed. So welcome, Len and Shelly. We're excited to have you guys here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. We're pleased to be here.
Yes, very excited. All right, so I'm going to kick it over to Steve, and he's going to take you guys through the quick fire questions, and then I will jump into the other questions after that.
All right, let's do it. So Len, first question is for you. Tell us, how many people do you have on your team currently?
You're looking at her. Well,
Okay.
we do have some part-timers, but Shelly and I are the team right now.
Okay, awesome. Shelly, next question to you. Do you have a morning routine, and what's that like?
So I have been really good about this, actually. I meditate, get my priorities together thanks to my wonderful coach, Ryan, and listen to some type of motivational video to get me ready.
Awesome. Len, same question to you, morning routine.
Morning routine. I don't have as well-rounded a morning routine as that. I usually start my morning at home. So, well, of course I do, but I mean, I start my work at home for the first, I'd say, hour before I come in. Feel like I can get a lot done and then come in feeling at least that I got something started before we start making our calls. So, and then I drive down. It takes me about 10 minutes to get to work.
Awesome. Len, let's go back to you again. Same kind of question. How do you prep for the following workday? How do you prepare for it? What are your practices around that?
So I'm a night owl, and unfortunately I'm up pretty late. So I start prepping probably 9 o'clock the night before. Not ideal habits. I don't recommend them, but I learned that from my dad. And I will usually start with getting emails ready and or all the calls that I need to make, start to make notes to myself the night before. And people will see emails from me 10, 11 o'clock at night, even later than that sometimes. So, and then I'll take all the important documents that I need to review the next day, and I'll have them in a nice little clipboard for me before I leave the house.
Okay, awesome. Shelly, back to you. Tell us what book has impacted you the most and why.
Not real estate related, but definitely mindset related. It's called A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. Highly recommend it. Just about getting rid of that fear-based thinking, which is so important for this business. Staying on track and not letting what's going on inside influence you reaching your goal.
Awesome. Len, same question. What book impacted you most and why?
I'm going to have to say lately the one thing, which I have it on audio. So I listen to it in my car regularly. And I've read it a couple of times, and you can never read it too many times. It's a great book by Gary Keller. And the other one I'm gonna talk about for a moment is Why We Sleep, because habits are so bad. You have heard of that. It's an incredible book that everyone should read or listen to. Again, I have it on audio. And because my sleep habits are bad, I know that. I've known that since I was a young child. I learned that from my dad, and I'm trying to get that under control. As you get older, that doesn't work in your favor. So
that's for sure. Or with kids, I guess you could say that too.
Yes.
Let's go back to Shelly. Shelly, how many streams of income do you have?
One, working on the second, and soon to be third and fourth. I'm hungry.
Awesome. What's that look like for you? What are you doing?
Well, for now, it's just this team. In the process of looking to buy my first home, which will eventually be an investment property. Len has been encouraging me to start recruiting people to Keller Williams and getting that secondary source of income. So all in the works.
Awesome. Sounds like a great path. Len, same question, streams of income?
So I would say 3 now. 3 that I can really count on, and then 2 that are in the works. So, first, of course, is my real estate business. Second is very related to that, which is investment property. And my brother and I just brought him into the business. He got his license. So he and I are looking to purchase 1 property a year for the next, say 10 years. We have our first one, and it's extremely profitable. It's a 2-family house, which needed a complete renovation, took over a year. And then my downline at Keller Williams, which I have about 20 people on my downline now.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And last one here real quick, the hero question. Shelly, first to you. What is Len's superpower?
I would say it's a toss-up between generosity and kindness and patience, all of them.
Awesome.
Very good.
Len, same question to you. What is Shelly's superpower?
Shelly has an amazing ability to make just about anybody comfortable with her at any time. And I will tell you, as an executive assistant, or what I call team manager, the best in our office of 350 people. And I hear that a lot. So you have to be very tactful and very warm and very giving. And yet you also have to know when the door needs to be closed so that we can get things done. And I hear that about her all the time. So, and I'm very protective. I'm very protective because there's people out there who are looking to, possibly steal her away.
And I won't let them.
I love it. Well, so walk us through, how did you guys find each other? What was that magical thing that brought you together?
You.
But so how did you choose each other as a leader? Because I know obviously Ciprani Consulting was involved in doing that, and Melissa was the key person involved there. But walk us through, how did you know that you guys could work together in that interview process?
You want to go first?
Yeah, I certainly put a shout out to your organization because I had heard about you guys. I'd heard about your recruiting business through another agent who I have respect for. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try that. I had an executive assistant actually for, say, 4 or 5 years. And she was also acting as a buyer's agent, and she wanted to be strictly a buyer's agent. So I knew it was time to bring in somebody who was just going to be a team manager. And after speaking with you guys, it was very clear to me that this is something that I could delegate out, because it is, I tried, finding somebody on my own online and asking around and all that. And it is an enormous amount of work calling through all the potential candidates out there. You guys made that very easy, and it took a month and a half maybe. And you took who knows how many hundreds and narrowed it down to 3. And then in the interview process, I just felt very comfortable with Shelly, even though she had really no real estate experience. And that's the key piece right there, because you always think, I need to find someone who's been in this business for 5 years. You don't really need to find someone. You need someone who can learn quickly and become a great team manager, executive assistant. And Shelly had the workings of that in her interview. I mean, I could tell that she had that.
Yeah.
So did that sort of answer your question, or did I? Okay.
Absolutely. And it's funny, we tell people that all the time. They don't need real estate experience. We can teach that, right? We can't teach them how to be Shelly. And so, well, Shelly, let me ask you that question though back is, how did you, like, during that interview process, was it like, yes, I really want to work for Len? Like, what really drew you to him?
Melissa did a great job at selling it. She, like, the more we interviewed, the more I realized this could actually be a perfect fit. And I didn't even, at that point, I still didn't even realize just how, like, perfect an opportunity it was. I don't even think I was concerned about not having real estate experience. I think I was just so excited to really immerse myself in something and learn something totally new and have new responsibilities. I was just looking for that opportunity where I could really be passionate and where I was an important part of an organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, you know, so one of my favorite things about you guys is that you're not the norm, especially if we look at like an assessment, right? So we use the DISC assessment and then the Keller personality assessment, the KPA. And so, you know, Len, walk us through, who are you on the DISC assessment and the KPA? And then we'll walk through who Shelly is too, as a complement.
Okay, so I will tell you that I tend to be very organized, I like things to be in their places. I like things that I like spreadsheets. I like to know, you know, what's going to happen when and things like that. I also have, so that's a high S and a, you know, high C, but I also have high I. I like relationships. I develop relationships, and I love. That's an important part of my background and what I love about the business. But I will tell you that if you look at my KPA, should I get into that? Is that okay?
Yeah,
sure.
If you look at my KPA, it would probably indicate to me that real estate is a real estate salesperson is not a great position for me as a career. So I kind of ignored that from the very beginning, or maybe I didn't even know that at the very beginning because I didn't do the assessment, but I knew I could do the business. And so I think I'm able to sort of prove that you don't have to fit the mold as long as you could work the model, so to speak. And that's kind of what I've done. My business is 90% plus referral based, and that's based on relationships, of course.
Which is awesome. Yes. And you've been very successful. So, Shelly, walk us through who are you on paper?
So I think the high D stands tall above the rest. I like to get things done. I like to take charge. I like to be in control. So I think that's where it really kind of fits in perfectly, that I like to make sure that everyone is doing what they need to be doing. I'm very driven, and I have that push naturally. So it kind of makes it easy to fit right into that role. I do have a much higher I than I'm supposed to. Apparently admin are not supposed to have social lives, but no. I think it's really worked for us because I've been able to then establish relationships with our clients, and in a referral business, it works really well because, you know, it's not just Len is the team, we're both the team, and people are excited to see both of us. Yeah.
So I was just going to ask, now that you've broken all the stereotypes and molds of what we always think about with this, can you guys tell us a little more, like, how does this play out in your culture? What does that synergy look like between the two of you, and how does that develop? Obviously you're complementing each other in some ways here, but what does that look like for you guys? Can you tell us more about that? Because it's interesting. Usually, again, the stereotype is the other way, right?
Right. So actually, I'll take one step back and say that when we were interviewing Shelly, what was important was somebody with a little more D. In other words, somebody who has that drive, because I knew that I didn't have as much as I kind of wish I had. And then my other administrative assistant, who then became our buyer's agent, hers was even lower than mine. So I knew I needed somebody who was going to push me when I needed a push. So an example is, I have a morning schedule, but it's very easy for me to ignore my schedule and get started doing other things. So I need to be told it's, this time is set aside for you to do your calls, for instance. And so I think that's an important part of the dynamic here, is that I give Shelly permission to sort of, when she sees things aren't going the way they're supposed to say, you need to be doing the following. I get distracted pretty easily. I'm the first to admit that. I get distracted very easily. And so you need to be kept focused, and you can't always do that. You need a coach to do that, really.
Yeah, well, and you can get into the details, right? So like if there are problems or things happening, it's going to always be that SE's like, it's their first inclination to fix the issues, right? Instead of sales.
Right.
So I love that. So Shelly, how did that feel when you got permission to do that, and how hard is that? Because we know it's a thing, like we tell people all the time, we're like, you're their boss. Even the high DEI, which is sometimes it's actually harder to push back on them and say, what are you doing? Go do your work. But what did that feel like in the beginning to be that person?
In the beginning, I don't think I really saw it as my role. I don't think I was comfortable enough to be able to do that. But I think Len was really great about giving me the permission and giving me that power to do things as we should and make sure things get done as they should. And I enjoy it. I mean, I'm a very pushy person. People know that, I know what I want and I go after it. And just to have that power it makes my job so much easier, because I want to bring us to that end goal. I want to make us successful. And it just makes it much easier to be able to run the show and make sure everybody is doing what they need to be doing.
So, and I don't mind adding that I'm still learning to get comfortable with this, setup, because honestly, I started the first 5 or 6 years I was on my own. You're an entrepreneur. Everything is done exactly the way you want it because you're doing it yourself. Now you have to feel comfortable with someone else doing it, and also trusting that they're going to do it well enough, if not better than you're doing it. And I don't like to be told what to do. I mean, I grew up with a very high D dad and a very low D mom. And it's hard for me to be told what to do and when to do it. No question about it. So,
Len, was that something for you when did that start to happen where that was embraced, where you were kind of sharing and co-creating? Was that something that you felt like you noticed right away when you were hiring Shelly, or at what point did you feel like you could share some of those responsibilities?
So it's a great question, because that happens over time as you build a comfort level and a trust with your team to say, okay, I'm going to let you do all of that. It may not be exactly the way I'm doing it, but I'm going to let you do that so I can do what's really important, and that is to, the rainmaker, to bring in more business and referrals. I wonder if you ever get completely comfortable with that.
Sure.
The answer to your question is it takes about a year before you feel comfortable enough to say, okay, you're going to drive the ship, and I'll be, I'm going to do what I do best, and that is bring in more business. But it's not something that happens right away, especially with someone who wasn't in real estate prior to this, because there's a lot to learn. There is a lot to learn. But I also get more comfortable as I hear other people's experiences with delegating. Even Gary Keller talks about it all the time, that you've got to be able to allow someone else to do 80% so you could do your 20%.
Well, what did that look like, Mr. Perfectionist? When you know that you exactly the way you want things to look, right? Even a flyer. How long did it take before you released some of that stuff, or have you?
Well, she probably will tell you it's not 100%. I still feel like I need to be involved, but I think more and more I'm getting more comfortable with it's not going to be exactly the way that I would do it, but it's good enough. And I also find sometimes, because Shelly's also a perfectionist, that she'll go way beyond what it needs to be good enough. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Everything is not going to be perfect, because we don't have enough people to make everything perfect. good enough, will do the job, and will sell, So I'm probably 90% there, but not 100. I wonder if I ever will be 100. But to be a really big business person and a big entrepreneur, you really have to be 100%.
No, you will be 100.
No. You have to be 100%. Yeah, so that's fine, and that's okay. But it's still, you're holding on to your these old habits. You're holding on to your old habits because this is my business. It's me.
It's you.
So it has my name on it, and yeah.
Shelly, what did that look like in the beginning? How hard was that?
It was definitely a challenge because I had to take a moment first to really get comfortable with real estate alone, and then not just real estate, but then get comfortable with the Keller Williams model and what's considered to be the perfect way to structure your business. But I think once I got that, it's still a challenge. I mean, you're not dealing with numbers and technical things. You're dealing with people, and I have things about myself that I'm still working on changing. So I think we really help each other out. I mean, we both know that we are perfectionists and we like to get things perfect, but sometimes we have to remind each other, what are we doing this for? Like, are we doing this as we should, or are we looking too much into this, or can we move on? So it definitely helps to have someone going through that journey with you, to be able to, it's checks and balances with each other.
I love that. And so walk us through, how was communication in the beginning? Did you guys have any challenges? Because again, you've got, obviously, you've got a stronger personality, Shelly, than the norm, right? And then there's Len with the not as strong, even though he can still be very strong, obviously. But, walk us through what did that look like in the beginning, and what challenges did you guys have in the beginning as you came together?
Well, I would say that probably, first of all, I'm not around a lot. I mean, in my mind and in reality, I need to be out, as Brian Buffini says, shaking hands and kissing babies. Yes. That's what I need to be doing as much as possible. The more I can be out of the office, the more business I can bring into the office. And that's the way I look at it. So now you have to have a really good form of communication so that whatever I'm expecting will be done gets done on that day. And I don't feel like if I'm not there, it's not going to happen. So we're still working it out. I mean, it's not 100% because there are so many apps and so many systems, and then there's texting and emailing and all, and of course calls, that we haven't perfected it, but it's definitely getting better. It's definitely getting better.
I think that a big piece of this was for me to realize that I needed to be the driving force behind the communication, because any agent, it doesn't matter what their personality type, is going to be all over the place, and you need to be that stability. And I think I'm getting better at realizing, where did we run into problems, and what could we do next time that is going to prevent that lack of communication or miscommunication. So I think I've had to step up my game, and it's just the way it is. I run the office while he is out bringing us business. So it works out well, and we're just going to get better at it.
Yeah. Well, so when you guys, walk us through what did it look like when you had a miscommunication? Like, how did you guys go about that? Because, right, so the norm for a lot of people when they're working when they have entrepreneurs or business owners, the business owner is normally very vocal, and people know right away, like, I did something wrong, and, and then they kind of hash it out right there. And a lot of times you have the admin who's kind of like feeling like, oh, I just made a mistake, they yelled at me or whatever, right? Because they're normally really vocal and crazy. Len's not. So what does that look like?
I think she reads my mind, or she has to work with. So I'm not, as you said, I almost never lose my temper. I think maybe, well, you've heard me on the phone.
I've heard you, times, never to me.
But never, maybe once.
I don't even believe that.
But
it's like lose your temper.
But in so doing, I keep a lot inside. So then she has to sort of figure out, okay, what did I do wrong, or what didn't he like, or something like that. That's one of the issues that I have to work on as we get more comfortable as a team, that I express when something isn't going the way I wanted it to. And then as she learns more and more about what is important to me, then obviously her execution will even get better. But she's also learning a business. So I'm extremely knowledgeable and extremely learned in the business. I can't expect her to know all of that. In fact, I almost can't expect anyone to know all of that. So certain things I do have to do because they involve my knowledge and experience. But we're still working on the whole communication piece because I need to get better at it. Perhaps both of us need to get better at it. Yeah.
Love it. Go ahead, Shelly.
And I also think that the biggest piece is that at least I've been trying to be more vocal, even though I know I'm a very vocal person, but at least be more vocal about, things that are bothering me, because it's never a good idea to bottle things up. Like having a good communication and a good relationship with your rainmaker is crucial, because that's what makes me want to keep working as hard as I do. Anytime I've ever sat Len down to just basically just hash things out and express to him, what was difficult for me, like he's always really listened and made an effort to work on it. And it's not necessarily anything to do with the business, just if I felt a certain way about something, it's an opportunity to deal with it in a way that it doesn't keep us from, moving forward. And again, it really is what makes me want to keep working as hard.
I love that. And was there ever a time when, you guys felt like, ooh, we might not make it? Or has it always been, no, we have pretty good communication and we walk through things?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever felt that I've made the wrong choice or this isn't going to work. It's actually the entire opposite. I mean, I know every day I come in that I'm very fortunate to have Shelly as my team manager. And one of the things I think that Millionaire Real Estate Agent, I think it says that your first hire should be the person who eventually is the CEO of your organization. And so I have to keep thinking that every time I hear that said, I keep thinking, could this person run the business entirely without me? And I do believe that. I do believe that. So, and that's the long-term vision. So if you don't feel that way, then maybe your first hire wasn't, the right person.
Right.
So, but that's an important part of feeling comfortable that you made the right decision. Because if you didn't, another thing that, of course, another Kellerism is that you need to hire slowly and fire quickly. Right. So if you know it's the wrong person, that's somebody who really you need to let them go. So, and I've had that before. I've had that happen before.
Right.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Shelly, I'm curious because you guys really seem like you have a culture of co-creating, which is so awesome. I don't know if we've asked this question before, but I'd love to know, in what ways do you feel like you lead Len? Usually I know Len leads you in many ways, I'm sure, but what do you think about that kind of question? How do you as an administrative person lead the owner? What does that look like? I know we have examples in our business, but I'm curious to see what you'd say.
So I think that it goes back to what I was saying about learning the Keller-Williams models, and we're also part of a referral network, so learning the ins and outs of that, and really learning how things are supposed to be done if we want to be successful, and just sticking to that really. As far as I'm concerned, there's no other right way to do it. I'm following the ones that have been successful before us, and I'm going to push us. And I think that's kind of taken the sting out of me being the person leading, because it's not like an ego thing. I'm not doing it for my own glorification. I'm doing it because I want us to succeed. So with calls, for example, I'm very pushy. I'm trying to get us on a call schedule, both of us, because I think we could do a lot better. And again, that's just following the ones before us who have cracked the code and have found it to be successful.
Sure.
And yeah.
Are you making calls as well?
I am, yes.
So it's an interesting question, because that's not the case in most real estate business relationships. Your team manager or your executive assistant is not making calls to generate leads. They're making calls basically just to follow up. And I feel comfortable enough, and it's important enough for Shelly to make a lot of those calls for me, because there's no way I'm going to call everyone in my database as often as I need to. So we script it out, so we know every week what we're going to be talking about to whoever we call. And our calls are not exactly the same, of course, but she can make enough calls to help potentially generate referrals.
And it's funny because I remember when we first started, you mentioned something to me like, and we're going to get you to start making your calls soon. And I remember thinking like, what? Like, what did I sign up for? But now I'm realizing that I'm not the only person that kind of hates doing calls, and it's something that you have to just work on and build like a good habit. And I think we help each other with that, because we're just, we're getting there.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, and so something that we talked about before we got on here that I knew I wanted to bring up is, Shelly, you're a person that people are starting to go to in the office now too. And, you can be talkative. So how do you get your work done? What do you do to tell people, no, I can't do this, right? Because you've got that, you kind of have that salesy thing going on. So for other people that do too, how do you time block? How do you keep them out of there?
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because I am social, but when it comes to my work, I don't want to be bothered. If I have things to do, it's like really one look I give that people know that they should just turn around and walk away. And that's what I'm about. I mean, I'm, work hard, play hard, but work comes first when I have things to do. That's all I care about. And I'm not here to socialize. I'm trying to get us to where we need to be. And as far as I'm concerned, that's my one thing. So
I love it.
So I'm going to give your audience some tips. Okay. So when I was given the option to choose my office, I had deliberately chose it in the furthest corner possibly away from everyone else, because this is a social business. And if you're in the path, the well-beaten path, people are always going to stop to talk. So I knew being the furthest away would be a good spot. Secondly, we got one of those, we have a glass door. So people, of course, look in all the time. If you're not on the phone, they want to come in. So we got one of those those little bars that people could see the doors locked, like one of those,
club.
It's for burglars, you put them in your door.
Oh my God.
There, and the sign says that please respect our lead generation time. The door is locked for a reason, basically. And so people see that, and usually they're not going to knock. They're going to walk away. And I am okay with that. It's not rude. It's fair, because I will help everyone any time of day if I'm stopped, no matter what. People come all the time and ask for help, assistance, whatever, suggestions and things. And if you allow people to do that 8 hours a day, then they will. So you really have to say, okay, it's time for us to do what we need to do.
It's a thing. And I love that. I love that you guys have gone to that extent. I feel like that's such a cool thing, because accountability is such a hard thing, and that's massive accountability around your 20%, the things you've got to get done. And I think that's amazing. I know you're big Buffini fans too, and so you guys are like so diligent. A lot of that has to do with who Len is too. He's following the system. It is his system. How has that grown your business? Because I know it really has.
It has. And I've now been in Buffini coaching for 10 years, actually. I think I just got this little statue that says 10 years. And yet, so I consider myself a hybrid of the Buffini and the Keller models, leaning more towards Buffini, although I understand that Bold is now sort of picking up a lot of those referral-based concepts.
Yep.
To generate leads from your database. But from the very beginning, I decided that this is what would work for me, and that is to build a business almost entirely built on referrals. It's models, and it's not easy. It's hard work because you have to constantly be asking for referrals, and that means you have to have voice-to-voice, face-to-face, events, things like that, where you're seeing people, and you have to grow your database. So it's not an easy way, but I'm proud to say probably one of the few whose referral percentage is as high as 90%. Wow. Whereas that, I'm going to guess, is more like a 50-50 or somewhere for most other agents. But that's the way we like to run our business. But even then, with all these models, I would say, if anyone remembers what an 8-cylinder car was, we're probably only firing on 6 of the 8 cylinders, and there's still, 25% more we could be doing to grow our business and to grow our referrals.
Well, I think also definitely following the models is important, but I think, like you said about Len's personality, we kind of pride ourselves on being a team that really cares about our clients. We don't even consider them just clients, they're friends. And, your real estate transaction doesn't end with the closing. We're your realtors for life. We're always there. And it's not just, we don't just say it, we really feel it. So, it comes from both of our personalities that we care and we want to help people. And I think Len did an amazing job at really translating that into his business.
Yeah, I mean, you guys do it on such a high level. It was so fun for us to come in and watch because you were delivering at a really high level when a lot of other people don't. What do you think, what were like some of the biggest, like the best things that you guys did together with regard to that stuff? I know you do pop buys a lot. You have events. Like, what do you think have been like really huge wins that somebody, like if they're listening today, they could easily say, I'm going to do that thing?
Well, we are constantly experimenting and evolving, but, one that almost everyone knows about is well, maybe not everyone on this broadcast, but we call it the reverse pop buy, which is the Thanksgiving pie giveaway. Last year we gave away, 70 pies? Somewhere around 70 pies, where we simply, a couple of days before Thanksgiving, we tell everyone in our database, come on down and get a free pie. And we spend the entire day giving away free pies, apple pies, and pumpkin pies. Choose your pie, and then come on down. And then we have that face-to-face. You get to see 70 of your contacts, 70 of your advocates all in one day. You can't do that anywhere. And that always works. Because you're always going to talk about real estate. We also have some things going on for the kids, so coloring and things like that. And we've done other events. We do a client appreciation party every year in January after the year. Last year, for the first time, we gave away trophies for clients who had given us three or more referrals.
Yep.
And they were blown away. We just, we put a little, a gold engraved, plaque on there that thanks them for, and basically they're our superheroes, so we gave away. We even had a couple of people say, I want one of those next year. So you can't beat that. I want one of those next year. So
that's
yeah,
fabulous. Oh, I love that. That's so
we
awesome.
do other, we're constantly trying new things. This year, for the first time, I have a course that I've been teaching to the agents here and in other market centers that I call low tech, high touch, which essentially is everything we do to stay in touch with our advocates and the process that we take them through. A lot of that comes from Buffini, of course. And so this year, for the first time, we thought, okay, we're going to open that up to our advocates and other people in the database who may be in a sales type position, any kind of face-to-face, any business that grows it by referral, which is almost every business, especially an entrepreneurial business. So we now invite them in, and we're going to do one next week, as a matter of fact, but we invite them in and I do the whole, it's about a 1-hour presentation, wine and cheese, hors d'oeuvres, things like that. And then I do my presentation for people who are not in real estate.
Love it. That's awesome. What a good idea.
Thank you.
Very cool. So let's ask you a little bit more about challenges. What do you think, if you had to give us one, what was like the biggest challenge you guys went through as a team?
Got any thoughts? Well, I will tell you that it's still a challenge and we're still working on it, because for me, the time blocking is very difficult. My brain just doesn't work that way. So Shelly has been very helpful. Every morning when I get in, I know exactly which 5 or 10 or 15 calls need to be made and in what priority order. Because that's something.
Print that out for you, or what does that look like? Yeah.
Yeah, she prints it out. Yes, she prints it out. How'd you know?
Shelly, how do you, like, what does that look like? What's that process?
Of getting the calls together, or?
Yeah, are you just looking at the database and you're noting it and then you're saying, hey, these are your people today? Or like, how did you come up with that system? What does it look like?
So I wanted us to get much better at our follow-ups, like after a closing, they can continue for years after. So I was noticing that a lot of them weren't getting addressed. So I wanted to include it in one master list so that, he doesn't need to be looking in 5 different places. It's one list, follow the list. And then also making sure that we're following up with our leads, because I don't think we found a lead follow-up plan to our liking that like really fits in with our model. But I think the biggest piece is just making sure that we have a follow-up set and that we're keeping in touch with them, at least until we do get those plans in. So I realized it's easy for us to not do our calls if, we don't have a call list. We don't need another excuse for not doing calls. If I get our stuff ready, then it's just a matter of attacking it.
That's awesome. Well, and then, so what do you think, if you had to choose something, what do you think the best thing that you guys have done together is? Can you think of something that was like, man, we did this and it was awesome?
Very small thing, but this is just one of my favorite moments that we, especially with what's been going on with the market, a lot of our listings have needed price reductions, and it's really not an easy conversation to have. But we've been doing a really good job at keeping tabs on listings, seeing when they need reductions. And I remember Len was on the phone with one of our clients, and I could hear because I'm right next to him, and I heard that right before he got on the phone, he said something like, I don't know if they're not going to go for this, like, and it was just like, I just had to be that support, and just as he is there for me when I need it. And I heard him on the phone, and he was able to get that reduction. And right when he got off the phone, I remember I cheered him on. I gave him a high five. It's a nice moment. I mean, it kind of takes you away from all the craziness and reminds you that, like, we are a strong team, and when we have each other to support each other, we can get through anything and accomplish anything.
That's awesome.
So, and to hook onto that, one thing that I want to institute, which we just started, is that for every big moment, either a price reduction, a closing, new contract, something like that, we switch off picking a happy song, like a really great song, and we blast it and open the door so that everybody hears, because I want people to come by and say, what's going on, and and so for we're going to do that. And then as the team grows, then obviously the music's going to play more often and loud enough for everyone to hear. So that's just a little motivational thing that we throw in there, because you want to have that, you want to celebrate your wins, even if they're not gigantic wins. You just want to celebrate them as often as you can.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. Well, so, I know your price points are higher, and we're going to talk about where people can send referrals to you as well a little bit later here. But, your price points are higher. So I feel like that is something that we haven't even addressed on this yet. But like your clientele is it's a higher clientele, right? It is high touch in some cases. And so, I know that you really, kind of hold them with what I'm going to call kid gloves, right?
Yeah.
What did that look like in the beginning? Like, was it like you could fully trust Shelly to like have all the right conversations and to treat those people that maybe needed a higher touch with the touch that you felt like they needed? Or did we have to grow into that?
Yeah, we had to grow into that. That's a great question
Yeah.
because I spent so many years nurturing this client base and developing the referral business, that of course I thought I could be the only one talking to these people. Unless you're following up, was a contract signed or whatever, did you fill out the paperwork? I could be the only one because they only know me. That's very wrong. That's very wrong. So you have to, once you feel comfortable with your team, then almost anyone on the team should be able to make that call.
Yeah.
But Shelly is the key figure now in that communication. So I don't feel like I have to always be the person on the phone. And she'll often say to me, "Do you really need to make that call?" And I have to think about it. I'm like, actually not. You can make that call because I know they trust you. I know they like you, and I know you're gonna do me proud, so to speak. Because that's a hard thing to do. It's hard to give that up, especially when your database is so referral based, where everyone knows your name, most of your people know your voice. So yeah, so who can I trust that to? So yeah, that takes some time, but you got to get to it. You really have to get to it, because otherwise my call list, it would be constant all the time. Yeah.
What does that sort of mentorship piece look like for you, Len, with Shelly? Like, how intentional are you in building into her? Because you have, again, a very unique culture, and you're very thoughtful. I could tell that from the first time I met you, that you're very intentional in all of your actions. So how have you trained her, and what has been your intention in teaching her kind of the best things that you've learned through your practice?
Well, so first thing, she obviously fits well into the culture. So whether it's just us or it grows, that's going to be an important piece of the equation. So, that's part of the comfort level. The more you hear clients say, "Oh, I love Shelly, she's just amazing," the more comfortable you're like, "Oh, good, thank God for that." And it's a reality. It's a reality, because you don't always hear that. And you especially don't always hear that when you're making calls to other people and hearing their executive assistant on the phone. You're like, "Oh, I don't believe it. How do they even stay in business?" All right, we won't go there. But so to me, it's important that we're in the same room, because then she hears me on the phone and how I respond to our clients and people who call in, and she's learning from that. She's learning the business from that. And then occasionally when she has a conversation, afterwards, I'll say, "Here's what you might have said differently. That might have, changed the way things actually went, or how you could have maybe gotten this, responsibility off the table right away, as opposed to having to make one or two more calls, or delegate that to somebody else, those kinds of things." So it's an ongoing process, and she's learning more and more and more. And at some point in time, I probably will never have to do that. So,
yeah.
And I think also it's important that I'm trying to get as much information from him as possible. So I ask as many questions as possible, and I'm happy that Len is patient enough to address them, even if we're in the midst of all the craziness. But I'm trying to build something with him, so I need to know as much as I can. I'm not just restricted to my roles. I want to learn everything. So just asking a lot of questions and taking it all in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. I mean, I just think that is so key. And I just want to underline that, like that trust that you guys have in each other is so vital and important to growing anything beyond yourself, right? So I wanted to just highlight that's awesome. I mean, there's clearly within Len this multiplying effect where he's building you to become that leader, but there's also that willingness and that trust from you that's extraordinary to say, yes, I want to do this and I want to go further. So I just think that's so cool. And I wanted to just acknowledge that for a minute.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I did want to add one other thing is, when I first hired Shelly, one of the criteria was I wanted her to get her license. So the people who are in real estate, because this comes up all the time, should your team manager have a license or not, your executive assistant? I don't think, she never got her license. And I don't think that had any effect on her ability to do a great job here. And now I'm not thinking it's really that important. What that does is it adds more responsibility to her to do more things that probably she shouldn't be doing. For example, broker open houses, because that would take a few hours out of her day when she could be doing other things and we could get someone to do a broker open house. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that adds to the trust piece because she doesn't really need to have a real estate. There are certain things that she can't talk about, of course, on the phone without the license, but she knows what they are. She knows when to say, okay, Len's got to answer that question for you.
I love that. I love too, Shelly, that you are questioning him on whether or not he needs to make that phone call, and then he started to really listen to you, because that is, that's super challenging, especially for that personality. So many of us, when we're building a business, we think that like our clients or our friends and family would never work with somebody else. Like they have to have me, and it's just not the case, which is awesome that you guys have learned that. So walk us through though, when some of that stuff was happening, Len, did that was it like, hey, what do you mean? Or was it like, did it jog you enough to go, yeah, you know what, you're right. She should take that call. Or did you want to hold on to that stuff? What was that fight in you?
Like an internal struggle?
Yep. Was there one, I guess is what I'm asking is, should I let this go or should I keep it?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had an executive assistant who has asked that question. So of course, but now as you grow and your business grows, then you have to delegate. You have to allow other people to do what you think you should be doing. So for me, that was a tough question to answer. But as I realized that she could take on more or find someone else who can, then I'm more comfortable with allowing that to become part of the 80%. As opposed to keeping it in. And then I realized I get more done in my day because I don't have to make that call.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it is a struggle, and it absolutely takes time to feel comfortable. I don't know that you're ever really comfortable because there are some calls and some people that I know I have to talk to, maybe even because I think they might be rude to her. And that has happened. It's like, I don't want you to have to deal with it because of the situation. It's not fair to you. So,
and we know pretty quickly what can be handled by him, but it also goes back to just that model. I remember before I started, I can't remember if it was you, Lindsay, or Melissa, but somebody showed me a video that basically said, this is the only thing, this 20% is the only thing you should be doing. Everything else is the responsibility of your admin. If they say they can't do it, you're handing the job back. And I think that struck a chord with me, and that's why I'm trying to pull as much as possible from him. There's a model I'm trying to follow. If he does, I see how his days are, how crazed he is. I need to take those things off his plate. That's my job. And yeah.
And that is not something that an admin, somebody that just gets hired knows how to do right away. That's not people aren't yeah, give it all the time. That's, do you feel like it's something that you grew into, or was it your personality? Because that's another thing that we're kind of trying to figure out with this podcast is does that purple unicorn exist out there? The person who's going to just do those things and intuitively knows those things. What do you think?
Definitely took time. you know, the more I got to know Len, I learned what he's particular about, what are his concerns. So it's easier to anticipate the things he needs. But in the beginning, it was a challenge. I mean, like anything, it was having to not only learn the business and how things are done correctly, but also learn what Len likes and how Len likes it, because everyone is different. But I think communication is key with that. You can't just ignore something if it doesn't go right. You have to talk about it and ask, you know, what could I have done differently here? Can you show me how to do this? Things like that, because that's how you learn what a person likes. And it was a lot of work, but yeah.
So to go off your question, I think in this example, it's really interesting because it can be learned, right? If you're on the employee side, it's a skill that can be acquired. But I think at the same time, if you're on the leader side and you're an entrepreneur, you have a responsibility to teach that, right? And I think that's what we can clearly see between your relationship. You have to own that, I think, as an entrepreneur and as someone that's growing someone in your business. If you don't, it's going to be challenging to get that growth out of somebody. So
right,
it's an interesting takeaway that I just had. So
the other thing is that we're working on teaching her what she can delegate, because there's so much more that I want her to do, but she's going to have to unload some things so that she can do her 20/80. And that's a learning process. So, you know, because there are so many more things I want our team to do. I spent 20 years in advertising and marketing before this, and there are so many more things I want us to do. And there's like sort of a back burner list of different things that we're going to do. But until my time is freed up and then some of her time is freed up, we're not going to be able to do it. So it's a learning process along the way.
I love it. And you guys have learned it so well. And I gotta tell you, you guys are like two of my very favorite people. I you know,
where do I
are so excited that you are on, because I feel like you have so much to share. And I actually probably could interview you for another hour. There was just so many amazing nuggets here. But let's do this. Let's make sure that we tell our audience how they can get a hold of you and where you sell real estate, so that they can, one, buy with you if they would like, and two, refer business to you. So Len, tell us where you are and how they can get a hold of you.
So we very much appreciate this opportunity. So thanks to both of you for that very much. And so we're in Lower Fairfield County, which I describe as New York Metro, Connecticut, because many of our residents here commute down to New York City. It's a great place to live. It's sort of the edge of New England, and we have every which price range. So you have, you know, I'm sometimes embarrassed saying this, but we have $200,000 condos and $2 million in up homes. So that would be everything, the Gold Coast, from everything from Greenwich up to Fairfield, including Stamford and Norwalk. We also cover Westchester County, but I have a partner that I work with in Westchester County. And we are never too busy and ever so grateful for your referrals. By all means, we would love to help anybody you have in this area who's looking to buy or sell a home.
And you can find us on leaveittolen.com.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay to say a phone number or no?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So it's 203-504-5326. 203-504-5326. That's the number.
I am sure that people are going to have questions for both of you. You guys brought so much knowledge today. So I'm so thankful for that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we are super excited to see how your business grows in the next couple of years, because we know you're going to do big things together. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Our pleasure.
All right. I think we're off.
Great.
Did
So
that go
good, you guys. I told you the hour would go really fast.
It did. Did that go well? I mean, that kind of what you were expecting?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
I admire the way, Len, I didn't tell you this, but I remembered you because you made an impression on me. And I think that's one of the things that's so cool about you and your business. Man, I'd love to learn how to do that more myself. I mean, you're really good at that. You could tell that, I think, in video, but also like, you just have a really good way of connecting with people in person.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
So if we did the other way, if you were to ask me what I thought my superhero, whatever it was, to me, it's about connecting with people and making long-term relationships, or turning an acquaintance, into an advocate, and eventually into a raving fan. But that's, that's what I love doing. If I could do only that, I'd be very happy. I would leave everything else behind in the office and go out and just connect with people.
Yeah.
We got to get you to that point. So you guys will get there. It's a tricky market, but it's gonna, we'll all ride through it and come out the other end really good.
Yeah. I would agree. The teams that are doing what we're doing are going to succeed, on the other end. I agree.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. We know it's valuable, and I appreciate it. I think you guys are going to have a lot of people reaching out to you, and hopefully you'll get referrals, and I'm just super thankful that you guys jumped on here today.
Well, of course. How does it say how many people were watching, or?
Well, so the beautiful thing is you guys are the first ones today where it's called Live Leap, but I live leaped into multiple places. So
cool.
It's funny. I know that we had 32 on just the leader equation, but I was in lead gen and objections, Ops Boss, Ciprani Consulting All-Star. So I was all over the place.
Right.
So I was trying to watch it, but it's the first time I've actually had that. And so there are multiple people commenting all over.
How can we go back and watch it, or is it?
Yeah, sure.
So you can go into the leader equation is the easiest place, and you can go watch it. And then lead gen and objections, it was in there. Ops Boss Coaching, Ciprani Consulting All-Stars. Shelly will get you in there, but yeah, you can do that. And then what we'll do is we send it to a lady puts it into podcast format, and then puts it out into Apple and everywhere, and puts music in the beginning of it. And then that will have counts everywhere too. So we'll let you know how you guys are doing.
Cool.
All right.
Much appreciated.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.